Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is none other than Battlefield. The Doctor and Ace arrive back on Earth to discover that an ancient myth has been unevoked. It turns out that a sword from a lake has been pulled, and the Doctor soon begins to get an unsettling feeling that someone is watching him. They come across an ancient knight in the forest and find themselves following him back to the tavern. It turns out that this ancient knight is fighting against Morgana, a sorceress of immense power, or as most people know her, Morgana. Morgana comes from a parallel universe in which all the events of Merlin played out, and the Doctor was a very cemented part of that history. It turns out that the Doctor has been put in part of what's happening, and it all revolves around something to do with the sword. Throughout the course of this episode, the Brigadier finds himself in absolute peril as he watches one of his comrades die from a helicopter coming down. The Brigadier begins to go and mourn over his dead in a cemetery, and when Morgana has the ability to kill him, instead she respects him as a soldier and as a warrior, and points out that he must honour his dead in whatever way he wishes. But once his grieving is over, she will in fact try to kill him. However, the Doctor and the Brigadier finally come into crossing paths, and the Brigadier decides to do the most stupidest thing ever. He decides to go in after this beast that is hunting after Ace and her friend, and tries to shoot it in the heart with silver bullets. Now, of course, the silver bullets work, but the Brigadier almost kills himself in the process. The Doctor begins to allude all the way through the episode that maybe he was Merlin, or maybe he will be Merlin. But essentially, the Doctor beats Morgana, and everyone goes back to having a happy life. The Brigadier, however, and the Shining Knight and the Doctor decide that they must clean the house while the girls go out on the town. So, Battlefield. What did I think of Battlefield in general? It's a very good story with some very heavy lore, and I like the idea of the Doctor being Merlin very much. It's even the reason why I wrote one of my audios to be a knight in shining armour, which is loosely based on some writing that Harry Gosling did back in the day. But both of our stories share this connection to this idea that we both talked about when we were very young, about maybe the Doctor being Merlin. I mean, Merlin has this kind of unresting kind of mystery behind him. Many talk of Merlin being an alchemist, many talk of him being a sorcerer, and many talk of him being a warlock. All things I can imagine the Doctor doing at some point in his existence. I mean, after all, the Doctor does manage to use a couple of tricks out of his pocket to make things look like magic even though they're not. I love the reintroduction of the Brigadier back into this story, and I also like the fact that they're really hitting the nail in the coffin now with the Brigadier. This kind of idea that, yes, he can be drawn back into the conflict at any time, but he really isn't the man he once was, and this is why he should be resting. I really feel like the cemented point in this whole story where the Brigadier kind of wakes up to this idea that he should just spend time with Doris is the time when he almost gets blown up in this story. I also like how Ace explains her chemistry exam and boom, boom, boom. So what do I give Battlefield out of 10? It's a very strong story with some very strong themes. However, I feel like one of the inner conflicts I have in this story is this idea that the medieval knights are using weapons that shoot lasers. I feel like that's a little bit far-fetched. I feel like this story could have still worked if they just used swords. However, I wouldn't get rid of the idea of them using a little bit of magic every now and then, like where Morgana starts electrocuting things. I feel like that can stay. I just feel like her knights all having technology, though, is a little bit far advanced for this story, and for that reason I give it a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, stay beautiful, you beautiful people.